and then we'll get started with the conversation. So really excited to be here. So it looks like we have about 8, 9, okay. And it's growing. So let's see, while we're waiting for everybody to come in, we can get started with intros. So let me prep sharing my screen because we did prepare some slides for everybody. And I have one too many buttons to click. So bear with me here. Sharing the screen now. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the slide that has my intro on it. If anybody can maybe confirm in the chat if that's coming through, just let me know. And I guess I'll take it away. So, hi, everybody. My name is Erin Khan. I am the founder at Erin Khan Consulting, where I support both contractors and tech startups with all things construction tech and innovation. If you're on LinkedIn, chances are you're already connected to me, but feel free to scan that QR code or find me on LinkedIn, and we can chat about contact on LinkedIn. Also, feel free to ask me about any of the things that you see listed here. So Bluebeam review training, women in construction tech, ROI and case studies, innovation services, startup services, and of course, anything contact. So I'll pass it off to our next speaker to introduce themselves. So Jeff, take it away.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm a independent consultant based in Kelowna, British Columbia. I've been working in this industry for about 4 or 5 years and very excited to be here today. I work in helping companies adopt software from a strategic perspective, and I am a registered digital advisor with the Canada Digital Adoption Program. So if you are based in Canada and have less than 500 employees, feel free to ask me about how I can help you get a $15,000 grant and some other financial supports to help you adopt some software. Beyond that, I also help companies with implementing those plans when it comes to project management and technical support. And you can connect with me by email, on LinkedIn, or by visiting my website. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Very cool that they have that program there. Right, moving on to Dace.
Everybody, Dace Campbell here. I am a consultant based in Seattle, USA. I'm an architect by training and have a few decades of experience in the AEC industry, and I've been formally consulting for the past couple of years. And my consultancy has really two faces. One, I help professionals in AEC help get the most out of their investment in emerging technology and in innovation. And then I also help tech companies align and land and expand their solutions for AEC. My consulting services often kind of surround strategy and insights and advice, helping people with their digital transformation. I lean pretty hard into Contech. I have a specific background in extended reality and spatial computing. So I do a lot there. And also, even backing away from technology, still in the innovation space, help with process improvements like lean construction and prefabrication.
All right, fantastic, Dace. And then next up, we have Justin.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin Sehing, founder of Almanza Group Consulting. Similar to a lot of the folks here, a lot of my focus is on the AEC environment and helping mostly tech and startups come together to help improve the built world. Most of my consulting practice is focused on helping with fundraising support, from refining pitch decks as well as the data room and due diligence, to product management in terms of being a support there and running PM capabilities, or even hiring product managers. Even to commercialization and bringing customers in the door, or figuring out how to, innovate in the adoption cycle, or, accelerate the adoption cycle, and into even like pricing analysis and strategy. Yeah, you can connect with me with my email there in justin@almanzagroup.com, or find me on LinkedIn, or go to my website.
All right, thanks, Justin. And then last but certainly not least, Nate.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Thanks for pulling this all together. Really impressive group of individuals on the LinkedIn Live today. My name is Nate Fuller. I'm the founder of Placer Solutions. Similar to other folks, I've spent my career in the AEC space, particularly in construction. I spent 10 years at Bechtel, spent the majority of that time on projects all over the world on big mega projects with Bechtel, before ending up in San Francisco, where I helped to build out the Office of Innovation in 2016. And since then, I've been working with other large construction organizations on emerging technology and innovation programs. And in addition to that, I started to put together really objective, non-biased, unsponsored content on emerging tech and construction. And the idea here is that, a lot of, I think, what we see in construction technology is marketing hype. And so really trying to cut through the noise with Placer Solutions research reports. And recently, on the next slide, we can look at this virtual summit that's coming up. So what we're doing here is actually taking a lot of the learnings and the lessons from the research reports and bringing them into a virtual environment. So the participants that took part in the AI in construction research report with Placer Solution, we're bringing a lot of them back and hosting an event where we're talking about all things AI in construction. And so I would just encourage folks to check it out, www.placersolutions.io. The event's on March 6th. It's fully virtual, and so it's a pretty light lift for a lot of folks, I think, to really get a lot of great information on a topic that's really kind of taken over the industry in the past year. So check it out at placersolutions.io.
Yeah, and to just emphasize, this is an event that you guys probably don't want to miss, so highly recommend checking out the content that Nate will be presenting here. So let me switch over now. And then for those of you who are on the screen or able to click into LinkedIn, what I've just dropped into the comment area or the chat area is a link to an audience poll, which I'll also share on the screen here momentarily. So we want to get engaged with you guys. We want to hear a little bit, from you, what you're experiencing today in the world of construction tech and operations and what you're seeing out on the job sites. So let's see. Okay, here we go. So sharing the screen now, you can join this poll at mentimeter.com and use code 1796389. Or again, grab the link that's dropped or should be dropped into the chat area. So feel free to go to this page and then just type in your response. So what is the biggest challenge that you're seeing this year with construction operations processes? So we want to hear from you.
Erin, can you repeat that code?
Yeah, so it's menti.com, menti.com, and then use code 1796389 or 1796389. So I think there's a little bit of a lag, so we'll just hang out and see what the responses are that we get in. Here we go. Implementing new processes, 100%. I think that's one that never really goes away because we're always trying to improve continuously. One response. All right, maybe some people are shy. Oh, here we go. Keeping ahead of the fast pace of change in technology. Yes, I saw a really interesting stat or data point not too long ago that showed the trend of construction technology and the change or the rapid increase rather from around 2010 to what we have now. So it's changed from just a handful of solutions to literal thousands and thousands of solutions. So I think we've all kind of been struck by that wave in construction. All right, here we go. A lot of content now. So adoption of a new technology you already purchased. Yes, so there's always that with making things sticky. Tracking changes, hiring the right talent, distilling what's hype versus what's actually adding value. Ooh, I like that one. Overcoming institutional inertia, maximizing use and adoption of existing tools. This is great. Great to know. resistant to bringing in automation. Yep, that's a culture piece there. So I want to open this question up. Now that we've asked the audience, I want to hear a little bit of the thoughts from our speakers because we've probably dealt with some of these, if not all of these, at one point or another. So I'll pick on, let's see, keeping ahead of the fast pace of change in technology as a starting point. So any thoughts on that? And I see like Dace and Jeff, you guys are unmuted.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's lots of ways to tackle this one, right? But I guess I would lead off by saying, I'm probably preaching to the choir because if you're on this, in attending this session, you probably already have the right mindset, maybe already be in the right position. But to kind of stay ahead, I mean, the pace of change is accelerating, and to stay with it, firms need to dedicate resources. This can't be somebody's night job. This has to be somebody's daytime job, earning a paycheck. At least part of their job description is to keep abreast of all that's going on. Whether that role is in operations, in IT, almost doesn't matter, but somebody needs to have responsibility and accountability for just trying to keep up with things. They're not a full-time conference attendee in any way, but there's a carve out of their job, of their day or of their week, reading LinkedIn articles, attending webinars, attending sessions, and then feeding that information back into the organization. That needs to be formalized. It can't be done on evenings and weekends. And then I would just say, shameless plug, of course, for any of us, alternatively or in addition, bring in a consultant who can help you sort through the tea leaves and understand trends and understand what it means for your business. But of course, that's self-serving, so I put that one second.
Yeah, I think
No,
what
I
you're
think that's
touching on,
right.
is just the emergence of like construction technology as a career path. But yeah, 100% Dace. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I was just going to kind of double down on what Dave said. I think construction is oftentimes caught flat-footed by a lot of the technology. And I think there's a number of reasons for that are specific to the industry. It's not like manufacturing or retail or some of these other established industries. It's an industry. Construction is an industry that's based on projects. It's based on field. It's based on a lot of learned experience over the years that can't just be brushed aside. And there's also a lot of egos in construction. Folks who have been doing it for a long time that kind of know they know what they're doing, and they've been doing it for years, and they don't want to be told to do it in a new way using a new piece of technology or whatnot. So I think there's a number of unique things in construction that make it challenging to adopt technology. I think a lot of it comes down to organizational impetus and organizational change management. So as Dave said, and it's interesting with Placer Solutions, we've actually looked at over the past 4 years, we do a survey of the top 400 E&R contractors, and we look at the size of the VDC teams and the size of data and innovation teams. And in the past year, there's just been a huge uptick. I'm just currently parsing through it all, but there's been a huge uptick in the number of data-centered teams in construction companies, which I think is exactly what the industry needs.
Yeah, I would agree, wholeheartedly with all of that. And I want to touch on sort of the adoption angle and a lot of the challenges I guess people are talking about here seem to revolve around how do people deal with this, whether it's in the hiring process or just learning to use the tools or learning to use them well. It's very easy in reality, if you have a dedicated person to manage it, to implement a tool from a technological perspective. You run through the implementation, you work with the vendor, you get it all set up, and then they kind of end their job, and then you're sort of live with the new tool. But what I've seen is after that, there's sort of a lot of remaining uncertainty as to how should I actually use this in my day-to-day life. Am I fully competent in all the nuances and all the little features that really make a person successful in using it every day? And so it doesn't end, and we can't expect it to end in terms of the teaching and learning process once we're finished with that standard implementation. And so within a company, you really do need a dedicated person with the time and competency to monitor that from, you know, a people perspective of sitting with people and asking them on an ongoing basis, how is it going? You know, what do you understand? Where do you feel like you're not sure what the right way is to use a particular tool? Because just like when you're building a building, a piece of technology is essentially a tool set for you to have, and there might be 5 different ways to do the same thing with, you know, a combination of features within that system. So who is there to help you figure it out? If you're a super busy project manager, you probably don't have the time to sit and explore and reflect as much as I encourage that in implementing change from a people perspective. The reality is construction managers don't have the time to do that, and somebody must do it. Otherwise, the implementation may not technically fail, but you most definitely will not get maximum use out of it.
Yeah, that reminds me, Jeff, of taking the concept of like lean planning that we do all the time in construction nowadays and applying it to our tech stack. Like we don't want to have duplicative workflows, duplicative features, because in theory, what's best is to kind of lean that out, make it efficient, find the right tool for the right job instead of having like 10 different tools for the same job. But
Mhm.
I was
yeah,
just gonna
go
plus
ahead,
one
Jason.
to what everyone's saying. Just add on a quick thing was having that person to kind of gather all what's out there is so important. And also, one thing that I find being helpful is also the categorization or how you map the different type of technologies. I find that there's like so many so many different ways that some, companies and companies have like mapped the technologies. There's no almost standard definition. There have been like, the Crunchbase articles out there and all that. But you also have
Mhm.
to find what matches to your organization, your own like construction company. Like what are they struggling with and what are the top priorities and problems that you should just focus on in terms of looking for a solution versus like I have to learn about every single technology out there because that's going to be just drinking out of a fire hose, like so super hard, so many things coming at you, always new startups coming. So it's more important to just like almost always like relay it back internally and see what your own construction company needs at the moment for different projects and how do you categorize it and map it and then focus on, those kind of little categories
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Yeah, I would plus one that as well. And I think that's exactly an area where consultants who have done this with other large construction organizations and participated in digital transformation efforts can add a lot of value, especially in construction if they're starting from the ground up and they don't have a ton of experience. But that process of mapping technology onto business processes is not
Yeah.
is oftentimes not intuitive to construction.
If there's one piece of advice I would give, anybody in construction, with almost anything that you're facing, is really asking, what problem are you trying to solve, and really understand the answer to that. So that's a takeaway from one of the colleagues that I worked with in the past. Would always ask, like, what problem are we trying to solve here? And once you really get to the heart of the answer to that question, everything else becomes far, far more easier to kind of make it the dots align.
And there's
Uh,
there's frame it's like there's frameworks and processes and methods for answering
to
that
do that.
question. You can be methodical about it. And I think that's where consultants are able to come in
Yeah.
and help put together that framework and walk you through the process to make sure that you're actually addressing and getting that business alignment that you need.
Yeah. And
There's a little bit of a
thinking
paradox
critically.
here. I mean, a lot of this comes down to, I don't want to oversimplify it, but a lot of this comes down to basic change management principles. And by default, AEC professionals and firms are inherent experts in change management. We change the built environment, through the design process, through planning, through careful engineering, through construction, on to post-construction services. Everybody in the industry is in change management to some degree, most around the physical environment. But, and I'm stereotyping here a little bit, AEC firms are notoriously poor at internal change management, at
Hmm.
taking a careful, thoughtful approach to bringing in new products, new solutions, aligning them to business value, running careful pilots, evaluating them, having a thoughtful implementation plan. A lot of firms aren't so good at that when it comes to kind of managing their own internal change.
So I
Yeah.
found that they're decent at it on a project by project basis. Like they're okay at it on a specific project, but when it comes to actually implementing digital strategy at an enterprise level, that's where a lot of construction companies fall
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
kind of
Exactly.
keying in on some of these here.
That was my point. We're all change. Everybody in the industry is a change manager on those projects that they're putting in the ground.
So pausing for a quick second. Oh, we're getting some claps or celebrations in the chat. Thank you guys. So in the chat, feel free for the audience, please ask questions, comments. I am keeping an eye on it. So I see already there's maybe 1 or 2 questions in there, which I will be able to grab and answer out loud. If we run out of time, it'll still be there so we can come back later and answer through the comments on LinkedIn. So please feel free to use that chat to drop in some questions. So this is a great discussion. I want to maybe pick out one more of these topics that are on here that's coming through the poll for another conversation topic. So asking our speakers here, does anybody have anything that is jumping out at them that they want to pull forward and talk about?
Can we talk about tech champions?
We can absolutely talk about tech champions.
That's
It's one
funny.
of
I
my
was just looking at
favorites.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Can we
Yeah.
define what that means? I think that's the big one. Is like in the
Yeah.
industry, when you say tech champion, it can mean a lot of different things. And I think honestly, that's where a lot of
Yeah.
tech programs fall flat, is that lack of direction in terms of what a tech champion actually does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'll throw out there, in my experience, a lot of the tech champions or innovation champions that I've worked with most successfully, they're just naturally curious. And if you help support that curiosity and that willingness to explore and improve, they help that innovation cycle or the adoption cycle for new tools and processes that you're trying to roll out. So for me, a real tech champion is somebody who wants to learn, who's curious about how to be better. And they don't necessarily have to be, a tech wizard, right? So that's kind of what defines it for myself. But of course, I'd absolutely love to hear everybody else's perspectives.
Yeah, I would say other characteristics, they're assertive. They're not scared to stick their nose out and get involved with something new, even if it's not necessarily assigned to them. And I would
Initiative.
say to some extent, they're maybe also a little bit rebellious, where they're not keen on accepting the status quo. And, you combine those 3 together, somebody who's curious, assertive, and rebellious, that's a person who can really affect change and be like an agent of change, if you want to start getting into sort of some buzzy terms. But there's someone who can make things happen
Make
and
things happen.
drive
Yep.
that adoption forward. Daisy, we're gonna jump in there.
Yeah, no, you picked up on one of the things I was going to say. I think there's maybe 2 key characteristics here. One is having some. It's not enough to be curious, certainly, although that's groundwork. I think there needs to be some business savvy. There needs to be a willingness and a bit of expertise to align an idea to business value. It can help make the leap between thinking about a technology as a tool, not a toy. It's not enough to be curious and investigate and want to keep playing. It's about bringing it back to value on projects or in operations. I think that's an absolute key characteristic, is somebody who innately wants to make it work, not just explore.
And that's oh, sorry, Dave, keep going.
Oh, and just one other quick note. It's helpful, and because I've seen this all too often, a firm will like point to one of their interns or new hires and say, "Yeah, they're our tech champion. They're the new kid on the block. They just got out of school. They know all the stuff. They're going to teach us." That's helpful, but it's also helpful to have executive and middle management sponsorship. It's not enough to just say that person is our champion. It's that person needs to be in a position of some level of authority so they can affect change or have the sponsorship to affect change.
Yeah, definitely at all levels of the organization, which leads into the whole thing of like, it's a culture thing, right? More than anything. Sorry, Nate, it looks like you where you're going to
Yeah,
share?
yeah, I've got two comments on this idea of tech champions, because I think it's a concept that's thrown around and that the industry is dabbling with, but oftentimes it kind of lacks substance or meaning. So I think the first thing I would say is that you have to have some kind of metrics to measure these champions
Mm.
against, whether it's adoption of technology, whether it's conversations with startups, whether it's thumbs up from superintendents and project engineers and project managers on site. Like there has to be something to measure what the tech champion does, because oftentimes I see a lot of construction companies put tech champions in place, and then a year into it, senior
None.
leadership says, okay, what do you have to show for it? And it's actually really hard. It's actually really hard to measure the value there. So you have to spell that out up front and be direct with how you're going to measure success for these tech champions. The second piece I'll mention is echoing Days. They have to be aligned with the business, and the business in construction's in the field. So they have to have good field experience. They have to have a wide network of folks around the business who they can tap into, whose sleeve they can pull to get stuff done in the field. And so I'll just plug my own services. Erin, you're familiar with this. I think we sat on a panel several years back at Built World, and I might have explained it
Yes.
to you after the
Yes,
fact. But
yes, yes.
this idea of especially within large construction companies, field and project users are just kind of dispersed to the wind every couple of years when a project finishes. And
Yeah.
so it's really hard to have continuity of implementation of technology across projects. And so the common thread is the people. And so understanding that there are a lot of folks on project who are really interested in technology, but they just don't have the bandwidth to do it. You can do something called organizational network analysis to find who those individuals are. And it's really valuable, because rather than just having 5 or 10 or 15 folks to go get something done in the field, you now have a list of 100 folks who are identified as technology influencers in the field, and you can leverage them to kind of be that soft power to get new tools adopted.
So we have a question on this topic. So given discussions about tech champions, talent recruitment, career paths, and new roles, are there concerns around trends of talent leaving the industry or considering other more traditional career paths? Interesting question. That's from Evan. Thanks, Evan.
I don't know if it's exactly the right answer, but I would say if you are designated as the champion, I would hope that would be something that would help you be encouraged to stay in the company. And I'm working with a client now where we actually built a program, and I'm just going to go through this quickly because I want to give people an idea of what does this actually look like in practice, because it's all great to talk about champions in theory, but like how do you do that, and what does that look like in practice? So we were implementing a platform called Asana. It's probably well known. It's a sort of mass market task and project management system, and we're using it for a variety of functions, and we wanted to really put some robustness in terms of its adoption. And so we created an Asana Champions program, and that for that, we selected essentially one person in each department to be the champion for that department. And they were tasked with one being the expert of that platform for their group of people. So they received additional training. Asana has its own ambassador program. So they were brought into that and given extra resources. And so they're in Slack channels and other things. We do other rewards. So far we haven't tied in any financial rewards specific to that, but we provide them with a way to reward people with stickers and other swag that Asana provides. So we have unicorn stickers and all kinds of stuff from that Asana likes to do, and it seems like sort of dumb and small, but people really like it.
Yeah.
And little
Yeah.
rewards like that people really do like, even if they seem cheesy. So that's one way to encourage adoption, is just to reward them for those small wins and give your champions rewards, and then empower them to also reward other people. And so we've built out that program with a clear definition of what their role and expectations are, supplementary training, and then we make sure to communicate that out to the rest of the company. So we want to make sure they are identifiable within the company, in their group, and across the company. So when they go in and they're seeing somebody struggling with how to use it, they can jump in on that and try to close those knowledge gaps quickly. And it doesn't seem like they're being annoying. It's literally their job to help that person be better, because I, as essentially the program manager, I can't be in every meeting all day, every day with every person. That's impossible. So they're kind
Right.
of like my eyes and
Right.
ears, and they're delivering that change that I want to deliver, but I'm not able to be everywhere all the time. So I'm sort of delivering it through them. And so it gives it a robustness, and we meet on occasion to talk about how things are going. So when you want to build that alliance of people to help push that through and optimize, that's kind of a program you can build to make that happen.
Yeah, very practical. Thanks for sharing, Jeff. And it's so funny that you mentioned stickers because I think anything you can put on a hard hat and stick, people just love that, especially in construction. So,
I'll,
no,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead,
oh,
Justin.
no. I was just gonna add a little bit to this was just taking, I guess, the perspective of like, is there a risk of someone leaving because they're in this super, interesting role, and it might kind of expose them to other like different career channels. And I think, as a firm, as a construction firm, yeah, there's always going to be a little bit of that risk in taking that leap to create this whole program or tech champion. But at the same time, it's kind of I've seen like different flavors. One is people who have been in these roles and then hop to maybe another innovation firm or hop to a startup that they've been working with, etc. And then I've seen the other side where these people just love the firm's bold vision on how to adopt, technology and change, and have stayed in this, innovation like division and department, and have grown in different roles and taken on different like specialties. And so I think the risk of attrition or somebody leaving will always be there, but I think it's kind of one that you have to take to kind of better understand the environment. Why are some firms actually doing innovation, better than, what you are doing? And that's a question to ask and think about, because if someone is leaving, is it because they're not finding enough purpose, or they're not finding enough like excitement or joy in how the firm rolls out technology, or or their viewpoint or vision of technology? I've had a couple of friends that I know left because they were trying so hard, but they were pushing against a wall to actually get technology out there, and they just said, all right, well, it's nothing I could do. And it goes back to Dace's point about leadership buy-in. If there's no leadership buy-in, you're really just kind of talking to the wall, and no one's really kind of picking up the whole technology is going to make a change or disruption here, and it's get on the train, or you might be left behind. So
Yeah, yeah, hard to make change happen in a silo. So,
But this might
um,
be
oh, go
heresy
ahead.
when I say this, but stick with me. I mean, change is good, right? I mean, churn is good. There is such a thing as too much churn, but I would encourage people to embrace a certain amount of fluidity between the AEC and the tech industries. There's something positive about people
Mhm.
with experience in AEC moving into tech to go make tools on behalf of the AEC industry. They're much smarter as industry subject matter experts. They make better tools. Likewise, there's something really magical about bringing an AEC firm bringing in product managers, bringing in people who have had hands on the keyboard doing development to do internal development. It helps prevent a firm from becoming too insular if they have a more permeable membrane between their own industry practice and the tech companies that build tools for them.
Yeah, I think what my takeaway from that, Dace, is like diverse skill sets will only make the business stronger and the industry stronger. So, yeah, cross-pollination between industries is not necessarily a bad thing. It can definitely help us out for the long run.
yeah, you
Um,
definitely want
yeah.
talent also flowing in, as you guys talked about,
Yes.
because if it's always just
Yes.
flowing out, so you got to talk about what's going on internally then.
Yeah, that leads me, a good segue into some of the biggest challenges that we're addressing, one of which is the labor shortage. We have a whole bunch of other issues or challenges rather, that, we're working through as an industry, including not just labor, but like financing, safety, supply chain, sustainability. What are some ways that you guys have kind of helped address those issues in the construction industry?
I mean, I think if we're being honest with ourselves, a lot of these new technology tools are going to automate a lot of mundane tasks. And in particular, I'm referring to AI of late, right? So
Hmm.
advanced language models. Um, I don't see that impacting skilled labor or craft labor in the same way it does kind of the indirect non-manual labor. And I think a lot of the labor shortage is in the field for that skilled workforce.
Field.
But no, I think if we are being honest with ourselves, like, large language models and these tools like ChatGPT and Google Bard and Bing Chat and Llama and Hugging Face, these are essentially gonna democratize the entire knowledge base of the world in a way that knowledge workers are disempowered, and it's going to take away jobs. I mean, it's going to take away jobs, and it's going to make life a lot easier for a lot of people. And so I think there's going to be a shift in the industry towards away from knowledge workers and towards knowledgeable workers, and those are knowledgeable workers are going to be individuals who know how to navigate a job site, who know how to work on a project, they know how to coordinate amongst all of the various stakeholders on a project. Because the knowledge piece is no longer going to be as important. It's going to be taking that knowledge and actually applying it at the project level. That's going to be important. So I think there will be a shift in the character of the workforce, and I think there will be honestly less folks sitting in offices doing kind of mundane tasks.
Yeah, I feel like labor shortage has been definitely talked about a lot in terms of, oh, we have a gap to fill. And so I think the reskilling piece of it is going to be quite
Reskilling.
interesting. So I feel like the reskilling has maybe, I don't know if it has been highlighted as much, but that's a shift that I feel like is coming down the way where instead of not just we have one designated tech champion, I think a lot of people will have to start to understand how tech works and how it's going to make their efficiency like 10x, so instead of having like 20 people submit change orders or something, it's one person who could do 20, and I think that's something people have to like embrace and start to just pick up on. And I think there's a kind of a gap in that training area. I know there's some startups trying to fill that
Yeah.
gap piece, so it's going to be interesting to see that. The other piece is I mean, it even touches on robotics. When a lot of times when people talk about labor, they talk about robotics. And so there's a lot of like specific types of robots. I mean, I've seen ones from, we know the ones from layouts, and I've seen one that does like automatic grouting and stuff. So those are very interesting to see in the next couple of years and see how it starts to get some mass adoption, especially with the business model. I'm curious to see how they'll take shape.
Yeah, I like how you phrased that, Justin. It was a labor reskilling. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing.
And
So,
just on that upskilling piece as well, if
yeah,
you
go
don't
ahead.
mind. I mean, that is the next step. It's like a lot of these new tools are going to automate a lot of mundane office tasks, and then there's also it's kind of a double-edged sword because those same tools can be used to upskill. And I'll just give an example from one of the construction companies that participated in our last research report. There was a story of an individual who was using ChatGPT to put together DAX measures, so Power BI dashboards. And he was someone who he didn't know a ton about DAX, but he was able to quickly learn it using ChatGPT. So it's kind of this double-edged sword where actually these tools, these new technology tools are actually going to be part of the solution in terms of upskilling as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So Erin, I want to try to attack this from a slightly different angle
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
No arguments at all. I mean, big +1 to the skilled labor shortage topic and the automation, whether it's AI or robotics, for sure. That's a huge driver. But I don't want to overlook a couple of other drivers, and in particular, sustainability. I mean, you can
Big
start with
one.
climate change. It's the challenge of our lives, whether we address it today or it's too late or whatever your point of view is. It's there, it's happening, and our industry is one of the major contributors to climate change. I mean, we're all contribute to almost half of the chemicals and greenhouse gases and carbon emissions that go up there. And literally half of what we do in industry is waste. We're an incredibly wasteful industry. So whether you are a tree hugging environmentalist or not, I think our industry's view of the climate change and sustainability problem is waste in industry, just period. Process waste, material waste, energy waste. And I think that's a primary driver for a lot of this. And we can't overlook it because, when we talk about, well, this technology can help reduce the count of RFIs or reduce time on task or get people to information sooner, that's all driven by a business level conversation about reducing waste, which is driven by a societal problem of climate change.
And I think as well for the industry, at least one of the things in my experience that I've seen is like a case study where projects that are trying to actively solve this and be more sustainable and reduce waste and have, procedures in place, they're actually more profitable in the long run and they're better buildings too. So it's kind of attacking or addressing the issue on multiple areas. So it's really just a
What's
process,
the
yeah.
causal relation? I've seen that study as well. I've always, anyway, don't go on a tangent, but my comments on that was always, what's the causal relationship? Is it because they have a sustainability program or initiative that they're more profitable, or is it the fact that they have leadership in place to be forward-looking, to do something like a
Yeah.
sustainability initiative means that they have just overall better practices, which
It's a
makes them more profitable?
great
But
question.
to echo
Yeah, great question.
Dace's point, I mean, I think that's like table stakes at this point for a lot of large construction companies, especially because a lot of clients are demanding it.
Yeah. So we've touched on a couple things here, which leads nicely into the next question that I have for the group. So emerging technologies and trends. So we touched on AI a little bit. I think Justin, you mentioned robotics, and we have a question in the chat as well. How have you seen generative AI in construction tech? So does anybody want to take that question and then maybe share some other trends that they see coming up in the next year or so?
I've seen some
I'm
of
just
it
going to
in.
shamelessly plug the
Oh,
AI
go ahead.
report by Placer Solutions, but yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff, and then I'll get to you next, Nate.
So most recently, I'd say a lot of it in financial workflows.
Oh, yeah.
So things that people don't really like to deal with, matching purchase orders to invoices, identifying the right accounts to code to, and just generally driving accuracy in financial data. That's something that I've seen and I'm looking at doing with a client right now, just to cut back on the manual element of that activity, because nobody likes to do it. It's inherently
Yeah.
inaccurate, it's slow, and it results in vendors not getting paid on time, and then they call and you spend all kinds of time chasing down that information. So that's one thing that we can get through quicker with AI, and we don't have to deal with hiring people to do that work.
Great use case and application. Yeah.
I've seen the reverse in terms of just more upstream. So in terms of the whole estimation process, the counts, whether it's a specific subcontractor, trade like electrical or mechanical. And so making it as simple as just uploading a drawing and being able to have enough counts and breaking it out into what is my bill of materials that I need to now order, right? And then how do I triage that into like, which vendors should I actually buy it from, or should I even prefab some of these? So I've seen that kind of take shape, which is interesting and exciting to see in the industry.
And
Like more
then,
upstream design, estimation, counts, things like that, and procurement.
yeah. And then I didn't want to forget you, Nate. With the
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
I'm as you know, Erin, we collaborated on a report called Artificial Intelligence in Construction. It's a 46-page report that does a whole soups and nuts analysis of value chain using generative AIs in the construction value chain. So folks should check that out. It's placersolutions.io. It's an amazing report, and it's grounded in conversations and surveys of over 100 construction professionals. But just at a high level, what I see with generative AI is really kind of three buckets in construction. So in the first bucket, you have just the quick wins, right? It's like if you're not using ChatGPT to help wordsmith your emails, you should be using ChatGPT to, I mean, there's like just like really table stakes stuff here.
basic stuff.
That
Yeah.
basic stuff that folks can be using advanced language models with. Obviously, the caveat there is don't put sensitive project information into ChatGPT.
Right.
That's another conversation. So that's the first bucket. It's just quick wins, just kind of go do. The second bucket with these large language models right now is kind of in the middle. It's like a medium level of effort to have it implemented. And, there's technical considerations, there's data management that a lot of construction firms struggle with. So there's some challenges. Something like daily reporting would be in this bucket, right? You have to pull from a lot of disparate sources, and there's a little bit of a technical lift. That's the second bucket. And I mean, I think in a lot of cases, those are going to be addressed by point solutions. So startups are going to come in and just gobble those up because there's a common thread across all construction companies on some of these mundane tasks. And then in the last bucket is the meatier stuff, the heavy lifting, that has a lot of security considerations. It has a lot of technical considerations. You need to get business alignment, organizational factors need to be addressed. Something like proposals and bidding, estimating, risk assessments would kind of fall into this bucket. If you can nail those as a construction firm, like, you're off to the races and you've set yourself apart from your competitors. But they're really kind of heavy lifts, and that's the last bucket. And I think that's where a lot of the larger construction companies are investing. As I mentioned earlier, Placer's doing the survey of construction companies' data teams. And we're seeing a lot of larger construction companies investing significant resources in these data teams, and that last bucket is kind of, I would hope, is what they're addressing.
Yeah, data is kind of the lever that makes a lot of these things, these technologies function where we're at today. So that's a great point to make there, Nate. And I do want to ask Days, do you want to share a little bit about the XR space, since you have a pretty good background there, and what the outlook looks like for that?
Yeah, for sure. Certainly AI is taking up a lot of oxygen in the room, and rightly so. It's an emerging tech, and one to watch. 2024 is definitely going to be, and already is proving out to be, the year of spatial computing, the year of XR. If not with tangible solutions, at least a lot of the hype and the oxygen is starting to drift that way. And so there's any number of ways to frame it. You could be as specific or as narrow as, here's how, the benefits of virtual reality in design, or augmented reality on site. Lots of deep use cases and exploration and tools being made for that. But I'd rather kind of step up a level and consider the conversation where XR is, and XR, of course, being a nomenclature for all things virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, where XR is a key enabling technology for digital twins. Because I think the digital twin umbrella captures a lot of other technologies and processes that are pretty key to digital transformation, inclusive of XR, inclusive of reality capture, whether that's photogrammetry or laser scanning, inclusive of IoT to sensor a building to feed into that digital twin. There's a whole constellation of technologies, ConTech, that feeds into this digital twin umbrella, and I think that's something to keep an eye on. Some firms are already, leading the charge with it. A lot of firms, I think, are watching it and kind of waiting to see what happens. Some are being responsive to owner demands. Some are approaching owners to say, hey, this is something we can do. So it's a conversation that starts to, of course, it spans across all phases of facility life cycle. There's design digital twins and construction twins and operational twins. But it's a heavy emphasis on operations and a lot of owner-driven, owner-centric conversations about how can they take advantage of and gain business value of the hard work and heavy lifting that was done in a digital, a spatial database during design and construction. What can they do to carry that forward into operations? And then, of course, there's a play for XR and augmented reality inside of that for the operator of a facility as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot to take in. I love it. If you have questions for anybody on XR, DACE is a great resource. So XR, virtual, mixed, and augmented reality as well.
I'm just going to second that. I've known DACE for maybe 6 months now, and I don't know that I've met anyone who has been in the XR field in AEC and as knowledgeable as DACE. So highly recommend.
Good stuff. So I guess, so in this room today, or virtual room, we're talking about artificial intelligence and robotics and extended reality solutions and a whole bunch of the new technologies that are on the market. I want to ask the group maybe to just pause and reflect and think back to earlier days in your career. How have things changed with technology? And what are some of the lessons learned and key takeaways if, you were to go back and share something with yourself? What would you say?
I think people are more open to talking about it. It's definitely gained more legitimacy, and people are, I guess, in general, have a greater awareness. AI seems to be like very popular to talk about. I think there's a real lack of knowledge of where it's going to go, and you know, my discussions with even people who develop AI, they don't really know, and so their answer is basically go ahead and experiment and try it out because we're not really sure what the direction is. But people are definitely talking about it a lot more than, you know, 5 or 10 years ago, where you might sort of get laughed at, or the discussion seems insignificant and irrelevant, whereas now it's more relevant and people are recognizing that it can deliver positive outcomes. I think there's still people with traumatic experiences, having been through failed implementations or seeing
Hmm.
systems that didn't perform well,
Hmm.
or you know, the implementation wasn't done properly, so people were kind of left like, oh, that's it, like, okay, but I don't understand how to use this thing, and I think a lot of that drives a lot of the resistance to try again. But ultimately you have to have someone to drive that forward. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it won't go well. So I think there's a lot more confidence in positive outcomes than there used to be.
Openness to the conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah, love that. And just another note to the audience, we're in the last 9 minutes or so of our time, maybe a little bit less. So please do get any questions you have into the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them here at the end. Any other reflections? Dace, Nate, Justin?
I think I remember flying like a indoor flying drone in a construction site like more than 10 years, like almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
And back then it was like there was no tech champions that we're talking about. There was actually, at least from what I heard of, and
Hmm.
I find it interesting as I was like reflecting on the conversation that it was back then, it was like kind of Wild West, like almost anything goes. If you kind of like talk to supervisor or
Yeah.
superintendent and they're like, yeah, go ahead, just try it out. And like, cool, we could try something here. Now it's kind of in these little colonies, I would say. And in some ways,
Mhm.
there's a convergence around like some structure, like some semblance of like themes and types of technologies and even processes are going. And I think we're moving into more of civilization, so to speak, in some ways of like cities and development of, we're going to get to that point where there's going to be like standardized, there are, categories that are like these are the standard ones that you should just try and use, versus like there are other ones that they could be helpful and we're still trying to figure out. And so um I find that kind of progression to be very encouraging and interesting that I used some like, building examples, but yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on where we're coming and going. So
Thanks. Dace, looks like you have a thought there.
My initial reaction was probably the counter example. I thought, well, nothing has really changed. It's the same conversations we've been having for decades, and it to some extent. I mean, I started my career in the late '80s pushing CAD, AutoCAD specifically, into my firm and trying to get people to embrace and adopt a digital drafting mentality.
Hmm.
And a lot of the conversations we were having then, echo forward decades later. It's a very similar kind of conversation. The tech has changed, certainly, but there's still this sort of aligned to business value to drive adoption kind of conversation. So that hasn't changed. What has changed, and we've already identified, there's a sharper focus on some industry crises, whether that's sustainability and waste, whether that's a shrinking labor force, affordability of construction, the complexity of construction, that has amped up. So the pressures weren't there decades ago that we have today and are going to continue to plague us. So I guess balancing those two thoughts, I would say that I think if I could have advised a younger version of myself, it's to embrace systems thinking more so. I mean,
Okay.
we've
And
evolved from
then
a lot of
what do you
point source
mean by
solutions.
systems thinking? Dace, just to expand that a little bit.
So we've evolved from having a lot of point source solutions that don't necessarily play well with each other or
Hmm.
don't even recognize each other
No
to
interoperability. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
need for, hey, that drone needs to talk to this point cloud, needs
Mm.
to talk to this AI system, needs to talk to that display device. I mean, there's a need to think about technology from a systems point of view, not just as a bunch of points of light. They actually do form a constellation.
All right. A lot of nodding heads. All right. Nate, any thoughts? as well?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that the amount of information and expertise available now when it comes to construction innovation and implementation of construction technology is just exponentially more than existed 10 or 15 years ago. Like the idea of having a construction technology group was unheard of,
Yep.
not even 15 years ago. But
Yep.
now we have a whole slew of incumbents and folks who are very well versed in how to get technology implemented in construction, including the consultants on this panel. So my advice would be take advantage of outside expertise. I think a lot of time bringing consultants in is really beneficial to a business because it allows that third party view, right? You're not in the weeds and you can remove yourself from kind of the day-to-day, jockeying that happens within large companies. Furthermore, consultants are working with a lot of companies and they're able to see and survey and understand what's happening across the entire industry and really help connect the dots, as Dave said, right? You're not just a single star, you're part of a constellation kind of thing. So yeah, I would say leverage the expertise that now exists in the industry that didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, that resonates. I think it was a huge learning curve in the beginning, like, there's this thing that's technology. What is technology? And we kind of all figured it out together. And for, those of us that kind of jumped on it or were passionate about it, we were able to drive value in very specific ways and got a unique experience, which I think now to the conversation much earlier in the discussion about like career paths and growing technology specialists for construction, it's come a really long way. My takeaway as well from my experience, which I don't think I appreciated as much very early on in my career, but I appreciate it so much more now, is just building relationships with tech providers. So they are experts in their fields of, whatever it is that they're providing. So they're also very happy to connect and share more about how the technology works. And they want to understand operational processes too. So there's a win-win between the contractor and then the solution that they're using. So building that relationship for me was or is a big takeaway. Having, a few years later of experience to kind of see the journey through. So we are almost at time. I do want to ask, maybe we can go around. So what is the best way for somebody to reach out and connect with you? So I'll go first. So as a reminder, I'm here on LinkedIn. Anybody can feel free to send me a message, or my email is erin@erinconconsulting.com. And then let's see, I'll just go around on my screen. So Dace, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you if they want to?
Anyway, LinkedIn, email, my website, carrier pigeon, smoke signal, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Lots of ways to reach me. Reach out anytime. Happy to help.
Good stuff. Nate?
Yeah, I'm just going to plug the AI Excellence in Construction
Champagne
Virtual
background.
Summit coming up on March 6th. I think if you're into construction and you're following the trends, you know that AI is a hot topic that's not just disrupting our industry, but really every industry on the planet. So check it out, www.placersolutions.io. Grab your tickets. It's co-sponsored by AGC. And we also have involvement in collaboration with Microsoft and Procore as well. So I hope to see you guys there. And thanks for recording this, Erin.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for joining, Nate. And then Jeff, and then we'll do Justin for contact info. So how can people reach you, Jeff?
Yeah, definitely on LinkedIn. If you're blocked from sending in mail, don't feel scared to reach out by email. My email is jeff@barkinconsulting.com. You can also check out my website. Or if you happen to find yourself at Big White Mountain Resort, you can find me on the chairlift. I wear a red jacket and blue snow pants, and
nice.
We can have a little chairlift conversation as well.
Good stuff. And then last but not least, Justin, how can people get in touch
no
with
surprise here. I think similar to most folks, just my email is justin@almansorgroup.com, or you can visit my website at www.almansorgroup.com or find me on LinkedIn. Not on the slopes, but you can catch me on the pickleball courts. I'm usually in LA. I'm one of those pickleball addicts that's kind of picked it up over the pandemic. So Yeah, thanks for bringing this together, Erin. Really awesome conversation and questions that that people got to
Yeah,
ask.
my pleasure. This lineup is fantastic. Each of you are amazing and have deep expertise in many different areas than my own as well. So I absolutely love collaborating with each of you, and hopefully we can maybe have another conversation in the future. So thanks for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Erin.
Thanks,
All right.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
bye.
Bye.